Hello YouTube, and welcome to part 5 of the meditations. In this episode of the Educated Barbarian, we're going to dive right into it, and today we're actually going to touch onto the topic of hurt, pain, and how to control it. Suppress the thought, and the cry, I am hurt, is gone. Suppress, I am hurt, and you suppress the injury. This ties to a new theory of thinking that is starting to arise on YouTube Fitness and in science as a whole, which is the idea that pain is mostly a cerebral activity in the sense that it's a social event. Meaning that, of course, pain is a signal sent by the brain, but if you look at it from the perspective of something that is potentially disconnected with actual damage, it can be also an illusion. And I personally know it happens to me a lot where I'm going to bang something against a metal, or I'm going to hear a noise, a pop in my joint, and I'm going to feel pain. But I know for a fact that if I hadn't heard a noise, I wouldn't have felt the pain. So I manufactured the pain in my brain. And that is a very interesting thing, because this also means that even for pain that is real, quote unquote, meaning that you didn't invent it, there is still a way for you to just cut it at the source. Because as he says, if you suppress the thought you suppress the thought of I am hurt, the cry I am hurt is gone. And it's a three-step thing where you get hurt, you think that you're hurt, and you say it out loud. And so you have to start with the last step. Don't even say you're hurt. The first development of your ability to control pain is going to be the ability to control the amount of time you spend whining. Whining does nothing for you. It, just as a person, as an individual, it does nothing for you. It makes you look weak. It makes you look miserable. So make sure you don't do that. Even if you are in pain, don't say it. Don't say it out loud. It doesn't solve your problem. And the second step is going to be preventing the very thought of thinking I am hurt to occur in your mind. And that can be emotional hurt as well. That potentially is the toughest portion, because it's easy to just censor yourself. It's much tougher to censor your mind. But if you reach that, Marcus Aurelius tells you that once it is suppressed, you suppress the injury as well. And I want to take that much more as a metaphor for the power that the universe has to hurt you rather than injuries. Because in reality, I don't want to have you convinced that you can just snap something and think I'm fine and you're fine. It of course doesn't work like that. It's more nuanced. But when it comes to injuries that come from other people, like insults or betrayals, all of that is within your power. So in reality, if you prevent the thought of I am hurt from arising, then you're not hurt. What makes not a man worse than he was, makes not his life worse, nor hurts him without or within. So this again ties back to what we said last week, with the idea that since nothing can touch the soul, nothing can hurt you because you are the soul. And you need to understand that to understand this sentence. Because if we draw from it, since nothing can make you worse, nothing can make your life worse, and nothing with its gain or loss can also make it worse. So now it really expands it to every aspect of your life. It's not just the influence of others, it's the influence of the world. And the influence of the things that exist outside of you in reality, because that's what we're talking about here. Even the body. Keep in mind that when Marcus Aurelius says that, he is thinking of himself and of you as an extension as a pure spirit that is just inhabiting a body right now. But the damage done to the body is not damage done to you. It's done to what you inhabit. It's done to the vessel. And while that is practical in a sense, it's going to help you to detach yourself from material possession. It's going to help you to elevate your mind. I think that the biggest part of this, and the most important one, is the idea that you are one and that you are indivisible, meaning that there is nothing that can change who you are. You lose an arm, it didn't change who you are. you can make it change who you are if you are traumatized by it, but in reality it didn't. It didn't have the power to do that. Your house can burn, you can lose your friends, you can lose your job. A lot of people would be shattered if they lost their job. Why? Because they tied their identity to the job, and they then allowed the loss of the job to hurt them. But it didn't hurt them in reality. Objectively, they were not hurt. You can say that from a financial standpoint they are, but even finances, if you follow what is said in this book, is outside of you. And that, of course, is a very etherical perspective, because you still gotta eat, right? You still have to, pay rent and stuff. But it's a mindset that is good to cultivate, because in the event of you losing your job, it's going to allow you to rebound, because you won't get hurt so bad. You won't spend 15 days just mopping. You'll be able to get a job again, because who cares? It's not your identity, it's not who you are. Just get a new job. And that's super important with Stoicism too. You are detaching yourself from the hurt that the world can do to you, not because you're going to exist out of the world, but to be able to perform extremely well in the world. The person who can completely disregard the opinion of others and the potential venom they can spit at him is going to be a superman in today's society. It is a superpower. Think not as your insulter judges or wishes you to judge, but see things as they truly are. When you get insulted, when you get into a feed, and that's something you see all the time when people argue and they get emotional, you lose sight of reality. And a lot of the time it means that the argument is going to completely devolve into ad hominems or into things that have nothing to do with the question at hand. But in reality, when that happens, what Marcus always says that you are actually doing is that you are looking at a fake reality. And either you brought that upon yourself or your adversary drew you into that. And we'll have a cycle. I have 2 books I want to read with you guys that speak of manipulation and of all of the methods people use to win debates, etc. It's going to be a good time, but it's way down the line in a few years. But this is something you're seeing a lot with people who are intellectually dishonest. Their goal is to bring you down with them so that you can argue with them on the ground and terrain that they're very comfortable with. And that is the terrain of imbecility. Because even if you're the smartest person on earth, if you argue with the terms and on the terms of someone who's stupid, they're gonna win. So you have to make sure that no insult and no attempt to hurt you can reach you, because it makes you objective. It makes you subjective, sorry. You lose the objective ability to destroy that person in an argument. For 2 things, be ever ready. First, to do that only which reason, the sovereign and legislative faculty suggests for the good of mankind. Secondly, to change your course on meeting anyone who can correct and alter your opinion. But let the change be made, because you really believe it, to be in the interest of justice or the public good, or such like, and not with any view to pleasure or glory for yourself. So the first principle is going to be that everything you do needs to be after reason, and reason is after what is best for mankind. And that, in a sense, is extremely smart, because you can circumvent Stoicism very easily and turn it into hedonism. If you say, for example, well, I'm not going to share my wealth, I'm just going to use it for myself, because that's what reason dictates. Yeah, that's the reason of pleasure seeking, but it's not the reason that one would follow if their goal is to benefit mankind as a whole. So that's the first one. The second one is to allow people to change your mind, but not in the sense that you're being manipulated, because you would only follow the word of someone who is in the best interest of justice or the public good. I'm going to pause for 1 second. Sorry about that. So as I said, it is both the outside sources you're going to be circumspect about and yourself. So for yourself, you will follow reason for the good of mankind, but you will also allow other people to change you if and only if it is for the benefit of mankind. And that is also important and an important part of Stoicism. I think that if I were to rank the ideologies that were the most bastardized, Nihilism is at the very top, because how many wimps did you meet in your life who said, "Oh, I'm a nihilist, nothing matters," because they don't get it. That's not nihilism. And the second would be Stoicism. Every time I see someone who calls themselves a Stoist, technically they're just being twerps. They're just not necessarily mean, but they're smug, and they think that that's what being a Stoist is. And they are also going to only follow what they think is right, and they're completely impervious to outside critique or outside ideas. But Marcus Aurelius just stated it. That's not Stoicism. You're supposed to receive ideas if and only if they're after reason and for the good of mankind. And the two need to go together, because after reason, your reason is subjective. So if you only say after my reason, you're only going to listen to yourself. But the good of mankind isn't subjective, it's objective. And if you're not blinded by the pursuit of pleasure, you will see that, and it's a good guide. Have you reason? I have. Why then do you not use it? Burn. When it performs the proper office, what more do you require? There is not much to say about this. I mean, it is something I want to say to some people when I clearly can tell that they're not reasoning, they don't use their brain. And it must be one of those days where Marcus Aurelius had a particularly long day, went home and he just wrote that down like he was renting on paper. But, there's wisdom in it. Why not use it? If you have reason, why do you not use it? Too many people don't use it, not necessarily because they have no use for it, but because their reason was replaced by something else. And the something else was someone else's reason. Meaning that someone else thought for them. Someone else created ideas for them, put it in their brain. And when that happens, you are no better than a puppet because you have lost your reasoning. The reason is you, comes from you. Even if it's wrong, at least it's from you. It is better to be wrong following an experience or theory that you crafted than being right following the theory that someone else put in your brain. Many grains of frankincense are laid on the same altar. One falls soon, another later. It makes no difference. So the difference between the lifespans, the difference between the type of lives we're going to lead as humans are, for the most part, purely random. I mean, you can be born with an illness that is going to awake when you're 50 and you're going to die. What he says is that it makes no difference. It makes no difference for two reasons. One, because 20 years is nothing. That guy lived 20 years and you lived only 40 years and another guy lived 5 years, etc. It makes no difference. In the grand scheme of things, it is so small that it cannot even be perceived. And the second thing, and the reason why it makes no sense, is that outside of that perspective that could only be described as a universal perspective, it also makes no difference for you. Because at the end of the day, you're dead. Who cares if another guy lived 20 years on top of what you had to live? You're dead. You're not there to worry about it. You're gone. You're back to the source. As you see, there's always two readings. There's always a 1 and 2 stages in what he says, which I really appreciate. And I do think that a lot of people only get or understand 50% of Stoicism. And this is the reason why you need to read the text and read them intently. Within 10 days, if you return to the observance of moral principles and to the court of reason, you will appear a god to them who now esteem you a wild beast or an ape. Interesting. There's something strange with that sentence. If you feel the same way, let me know what you feel in the comments. What I feel here is that it is, in my opinion, a little strange to think that you would return to an observance of moral principles. So that's talking about someone who was without reason and then who reasoned. And the people who took him for an idiot now revere him. But it's interesting to see that the opposite could also be true. If you're surrounded by idiots and you start thinking morally and logically, they will start to take you as a beast because you're going to look so foreign to them that are going to start to reject you. But with the way Marcus Aurelius presented the sentence, it basically means also that the man that fails to reason is going to be seen as a beast and an animal when among other men. And the times nowadays dictate a different story, because I think it's the opposite now. I think that when you have reason, when you have logic, people look at you and think you're not normal. And the only way for people to perceive you as normal is to abandon your reason, which is, it's a sad testimony of where we're getting at, because, and that's something that always is on my mind, and maybe is on your mind too, but I'm always thinking of logic and reasoning, and what good is all of that if you're surrounded by people who don't get it, and not only don't get it, but actively hate it. Because in reality, if I put you in a room with 99 people and you are the one intelligent person, if the 99 people don't think you're intelligent and reject your ideas, are you really intelligent? Because intelligence is the application of the mind to help the group. But what if the group refuses to be helped? What if the group thinks that your help is of low stature? Then what do? It's a little bit terrifying, isn't it? Because in reality, you could just abide by what Marcus Aurelius says and say, I am self-sufficient and my logical abilities make me who I am, and my reason are the proof that I am man, and that's all I need. But that is a line of thinking that is completely separated from the reality of a life in a society. Because at some point, unless you somehow fake it all the time, you're going to go insane. Because if you have what you perceive to be as close as a universal truth as possible, and yet no one else thinks this way, you're either going to bend the knee and start thinking like they do, or you're going to resist and eventually be devoured by those people, because they're going to go after you for what you have, what you are. I don't have an answer. I honestly don't have an answer, because sometimes I wonder. Sometimes I ask myself, what even is the point? It's like learning a language, but then no one speaks it. So why don't you just stick to the language that you used to speak, that everyone speaks, even if it's a stupid language? Maybe a little bit demoralizing, sorry about that, but it's the times. It is just the times. I think that for me, what would keep me on the path of logic and reason is just ego, because I perceive it to be the right way, and therefore I refuse to not stay on the path that I perceive to be righteous and beneficial for me. And in a sense, maybe it's just because I lack patience. I need to develop my patience more. Maybe I just have to wait. Maybe the logic and critical abilities that I have developed and I'm going to keep developing will be necessary at some point. Maybe they are not of any use now. Maybe they are going to even point me and identify me as a target now, but in the future they are going to be the key. And I would encourage you to think the same. We are creating skills not just for ourselves, but also for others. And even if the skills are not relevant now, they might be in the future. And for now, the goal is to keep us sane and to keep us grinding. Because if you stop developing your intellect and cerebral abilities now, it'll be too late the day you need them. So keep at it now. Even if you feel like it's transforming you into a different being, even if you feel like it's separating you from the rest of the world, might be a good thing. Because at some point, there's a choice to be made. Who do you want to be? Do you want to be a Stoist, or do you want to be something else? Do you want to be a follower? And that is up to you. But we're going to continue reading that book. We're going to continue advancing. For the people who have my edition, we are actually on line 17. So we'll get back to that next time. Thank you for watching. Have a good day.